A long time ago, when King Herod was in charge, there was a man named Zachariah. He was a priest, which meant he worked in God's temple. Zachariah had a wife called Elizabeth, and she came from a special family who also loved and served God. Both Zachariah and Elizabeth tried their best to follow God's ways and live good, honest lives. But there was something that made them sad. They didn't have any children, even though they'd prayed about it for a long, long time. Now they were both very old, and it seemed like having a baby would never happen. One day, Zachariah was in the temple, doing his job of burning incense to worship God. While everyone was outside praying, something amazing happened. An angel suddenly appeared next to the altar where Zachariah was standing. Zachariah was so surprised and scared that he froze. The angel smiled and said, "Don't be afraid, Zachariah. God has heard your prayers. Your wife Elizabeth is going to have a baby boy, and you'll name him John. He'll make you very happy, and so many other people will be happy too. He's going to be someone very special." The angel continued, "Your son John will help people come closer to God. He'll remind families to love each other and teach everyone to get ready for God's promises. He will have God's Spirit with him, even before he's born." Zachariah couldn't believe what he was hearing. "But how can this be true?" he asked. "Elizabeth and I are old now." The angel replied, "I am Gabriel, a messenger from God. I came to tell you this wonderful news, but since you didn't believe me, you won't be able to speak until the baby is born. Everything I've said will happen, just as God has planned." When Zachariah came out of the temple, the people waiting outside were wondering why it had taken so long. When he tried to talk to them, he couldn't say a single word. He had to use his hands to explain what had happened. Everyone could tell something amazing had occurred. After Zachariah finished his work at the temple, he went home. Not long after, Elizabeth found out she was going to have a baby. She was so happy and thankful to God. She said, "God has blessed me and taken away my sadness." When the baby was born, all the neighbours and relatives were so excited. They all celebrated together, smiling and laughing. When the baby was 8 days old, it was time to give him a name. Everyone thought he'd be called Zachariah, just like his daddy. But Elizabeth shook her head and said, "No, his name will be John." The neighbours were very surprised. "John? But no one in your family has that name," they said. Zachariah still couldn't speak, so he wrote on a tablet instead. He wrote very clearly, "His name is John." And then something amazing happened. As soon as he wrote that, Zachariah could speak again. His voice came back and he started talking and praising God loudly. Everyone was astonished. The news spread all over the hills and villages. People whispered to each other, "What kind of special plans does God have for this baby? It's clear God's hand is on him."